Hey there, Beverly Hills 90210 fans. It's now time to dive deep into an episode-by-episode, character-by-character, song-by-song account of the making of your favorite zip code. So sit back and relax because it's like totally time for the Beverly Hills 90210 show.
All right, so I got this group together today to talk a little bit about Luke Perry. Today he would have been 54 years old, and it's his birthday. Rory, you kind of reached out to me about your relationship with Luke. Didn't even realize that you guys had known each other. How did that happen? How did you guys meet?
Well, I was a huge Beverly Hills 90210 / Dylan McKay fan growing up. I think that character was like, every girl wanted him and every guy wanted to be like him. So I always liked him as an actor and wanted to work with him. I'm a documentary director. So here's Madelaine.
Hey, Madelaine.
Yeah. I reached out to him to narrate a film that I did back in 2010. And we really hit it off. And then I had him narrate another film less than a year later, and then he's like, hey, I have some ideas about some documentaries. So we wound up doing a short film on Cincinnati Reds owner Marge Schott. I don't know if you guys remember her. She was kind of like this racist older woman. Luke was a huge baseball fan, a huge sports fan. So he was like really into just the whole documentary making process. So we went to Cincinnati, and I made the mistake of booking him a coach ticket. And I had asked him, I was like, hey, did anyone recognize you on the plane? And he said, only the entire set. And then it was funny, on the way back, I saw him trying to change his ticket. And he's like, it won't let me. We were at the airport in Cincinnati. And he's like, it won't let me change my ticket. I don't understand why. And I'm like, well, you're at the Delta Center and you're on an American flight. So he was, he wasn't the most technologically sound guy, but we just hit it off after that. He was like he was just like one of the most kind people I've ever encountered as far as like kindness goes. I always say there's a difference between being nice and being kind. Probably especially you guys can relate in Hollywood too. Like everyone's kind of nice for the most part to your face, but Luke, kindness is in your actions over the long term. And Luke was just such a kind person. And I remember on your 30th anniversary podcast, Peter for 90210, Josh Taylor said Dylan McKay was cool, but Luke Perry was even cooler. And that's what I found out. It was funny. One of the first times we hung out, I went to his house, and I was so hyped up. He was like, "Yeah, we'll kind of pregame at my house, and then we can go out." And I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be awesome! I'm gonna hit LA with Dylan McKay." And it's like Friday night at 4:30 in the afternoon, and Luke comes downstairs in these old man pajamas, he's got these glasses on.
With the croquis on the back.
Yeah, something
didn't fall off of his face, yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, my back kind of hurts. He's like, can we just hang out here? And I was like, he could tell I was disappointed. And I was like, sure. And then he knew I was kind of a big 90210 fan, but I didn't want to freak him out. But now it's a couple of years in the friendship, so I kind of let it seep out a little bit. So he's like, I'll tell you what, you can ask any question you want about 90210. And I was like, all right, I'm in. So we hung out and drank beers. And I remember I was asking him these questions like a super fan,
right.
I didn't understand, why did they bring your dad back when your dad was supposed to be dead? And I'm talking to him about this it's like the JFK assassination,
Right.
And I remember he just takes a sip of his beer and he's just like, it wasn't real, Rory. It's just don't overthink it. So.
It's just a show, man.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. It's just a show.
I'm learning that the hard way.
He didn't take it serious.
What about you, Brian? I'm sure you got some good ones on Luke, right?
Yeah. I mean, Luke. So I remember going to. He had a house in. God, where was it? Like Echo Park or something like that. Beautiful neighborhood. And I was super excited to go to his house to hang out. I had my oldest son with me, and we were going to go over there, and he was going to swim with Luke's kids. So it was cool. I hadn't been. God, I don't remember exactly where it was. I'm blanking on the area, but we pull up to his house. All of his grass is dead, like completely dead, and he has a bunch of fake plastic owls everywhere on sticks. And he tells me, "Oh, I've had a problem with crows." So I was like, oh, "Classic Luke." So then I go to buzz at his gate, and the buzzer doesn't work. And he leans out the window from the second floor, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I'll be right down." So he comes down. He's like, "Oh, the buzzer hasn't worked in 2 years." So I walk into his house with my son, and all of his furniture inside of his house is all lawn furniture. Everything, like all of it. He didn't want to spend, just didn't spend any money on stuff like that. Like that just wasn't where his head was at. So yeah. It was all lawn furniture, which was great because it was a swim day. So we didn't have to worry about like the kids being wet and coming inside. And then he had installed a zip line over his pool, but there was a wood box at one end and a pole that he sort of precariously kind of put up with a cable that went to the other end of the pool. Same thing, box, pole. And I was sitting there thinking, like, I love my child. Like, I don't know if I really want to put him on this zip line or not. Like, it doesn't look like it meets all of the regulations of zip lining. Like it's up to code. But it was a really fun day. I mean, Luke was a cool guy to hang out with because he was a real simple guy. But Rory, like you said, like he was real. There are people that are nice and then people that are kind, like you said, and he just you could feel his heart when you were with him. Like he was just 1,000% with you, and nothing else mattered. And he made everyone that he ever met or came across feel special, which is that's such a rare quality, especially nowadays. And Luke had that, and it's not surprising to me that so many people have reached out and spoken so kindly about him and had amazing stories of him, because he was really an amazing person. Really, I feel so lucky and blessed to have been as close to him as I was and spent the time with him that I did and experienced him, because he's one of those guys at the end of it all, like I'll look back on and go, I'm really happy that he was in my life.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring Dan into this. Dan was Luke's longtime friend, right?
Yes. Hi, Madelaine. We haven't said hi.
Or Madelaine, yeah. How are you? Good to see you.
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys?
What about for you, Madelaine? What was your experience like with Luke?
It's very different than Rory and Brian, because obviously I'm quite a bit younger than Luke, and he had been through everything I went through. I'm on a show called Riverdale, and I kind of shot to success very quickly, like I imagine you guys did for 90210. And he was very much like I wouldn't say a father figure, because there were parts of him that weren't fatherly at all, but it was like he was a mentor and somebody who I could look to when I needed advice about anything and everything. And my travel buddy, like we'd always travel in first class together. He taught me all about making sure that he's like, the one thing I'll never skimp on is first class travel. My back cannot take those coach seats. So we'd always make our travel plans together. I'd call him for literally everything and anything: script advice, acting advice, life advice. He was somebody who I could look to as an oracle through this, navigating this really strange time of kind of skyrocketing into being known in the world, something he knew so well. And he taught me how to do it with grace and with humility, and to walk into a room with crew members that he worked with 25 years ago and remember their names and what project he worked on with them every single time. I had never walked onto set with Luke any time without him being able to name every single crew member in that room and what their job was. And he taught me how to conduct yourself on a big set and how to be a leader on a set. And he did that time and time again. We worked with a nutty director once who just had, I felt like she walked in off the street. Like she had no idea what was going on. And Luke just came in and he completely took over and he handled it with such grace and kindness, but also was very firm, which is exactly what he needed to be, and protected me in a scene where I had to be incredibly emotional. And it seemed like she wanted me to do like 54 takes. And he walked in, he said, you get 2 close-ups, 2 wides, and a cowboy. Do it as you want, but that's what you get on her. And walked away. And that's what she did. And it still worked great. He just protected us and really made sure that we knew how to conduct ourselves, and he was always available to us. I couldn't be more thankful to have been able to have my first project with him.
You know, Madelaine, he always spoke really highly of you guys. Like I spent a lot of time just having lunches, and he talked about the set and you guys as a cast, and he really, really enjoyed the experience of that and loved you guys. He really loved working on the show, and he loved all the people there. So
we really love him still, obviously.
Luke, I think you guys will agree with this. Like, he did not go into the hierarchy of like what's supposed to happen on a set. Right. And that really struck me at his 50th birthday party. I was sitting next to someone who was the showrunner on this TNT series. I think it was called High Crimes or True Crime. I said, well, how do you know Luke? And he said, well, I was a production assistant on 90210, and we've stayed friends ever since. So that was Luke. He was he didn't care where you were on the Pantheon on the movie set. When I worked in Vancouver, everyone there knew Luke. When I say everyone, I mean bartenders, bellhops. They all spoke so highly of him. And he definitely spoke really highly of you too, Madelaine. I remember him mentioning you.
Yeah. How about you, Dan? You knew him probably the longest of everybody here on this panel, right?
Yeah. I first met him. We were probably around 12. And we became friends. We went to a baseball camp together when we were 14. And we're just pretty much inseparable. There were 4 of us. From there on out, 3 of them went with Luke to LA back in, I think, the summer of '84. And I went on to college and missed the whole, so I was on a 7-year program of college, but I missed the whole, when Dylan in 90210 exploded. We didn't have cell phones then, and Luke seemed like getting a new phone number every 6 months or something at the time. And but I guess I ran around with Luke when he was Dylan's age, more or less.
I got you.
Got to see
what position did he play? I'm really curious. 14 is pretty, that's real serious hardball at that point.
Well, the camp that we were at, the guy who ran it, and talking about Luke's memory, he would bring up this guy, the guy that ran the camp, he'd bring up his name all the time. But this particular camp, we moved everybody played every position. Now, Luke was left-handed, so he usually played in the outfield. In fact, there's one of my favorite stories about Luke. We weren't really friends yet, but the whole town took notice. He was playing center field. Somebody hit a home run ball. Luke takes off sprinting. At some point in time, he had to have realized he had no chance in hell of catching this ball. But and knowing him now, I know that he had thought this through in his head, that if he ever had the opportunity, he was going to dive over the fence to try to make this catch. Well, the ball lands 20 feet behind him. He hits the ground, and just rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls until he got to the ball. And of course, he jumped up and acted like he had caught it. Everybody in town saw it, but that was like having Luke added that element to our childhood. I'm sure there's a lot of examples that I just
wasn't he the mascot for your high school? Wasn't he?
Was, yeah. So Fredericktown Freddies, and Luke was the Freddy Bird. Which I describe as a San Diego chicken suit, if you old enough to remember that, only it was we were scarlet and gray. So it was like the San Diego chicken stuffed in a Santa Claus suit. Yeah, and he did it. He at one game he had his stepfather worked for the construction company, and the construction company had a jet helicopter. Well, Luke talked them into flying him into the stadium and dropped him down on the football field. I mean, it's a small town of 2,000 people, and Luke's got.
I heard that story.
I actually played and didn't get to see it, but it's something they talked about forever. We were in the locker room when it happened. But
yeah, I'm going to share this.
Bring motorcycles and four-wheelers and stuff and ride up and down.
I want to share this clip David Arquette sent in for you guys. Take a listen to this.
Thanks, Pete. I'm sorry I can't be there for Luke's birthday, but happy birthday, Luke. We all miss you. We all love you. I wanted to share a quick story. When he first moved to LA, Alexis and Luke had done a movie called Terminal Bliss. Alexis, my sister. And he came out and he lived at our house when he got cast in 90210, and I was on The Outsiders. Our show got canceled. His got picked up, and he went on this rocket ship to stardom. But he always remained just the kindest, sweetest soul. He used to come over and move my mom's trash cans and just help with things around the house, even after he was a big star. He was always so sweet and so kind. And I just keep hearing his voice when he used to joke like, that little thing. And Norma Jean, his first pig. All the good times. He was a wonderful person. I miss him dearly. Miss him all the time. And I love him. Love you guys too. Hope you're having a great show. And thanks for letting me say hi.
Very nice stuff from David. Brian, I want to ask you, one of the times we talked about Luke, you mentioned that about hearing his voice, and David mentioned that. Is that a thing that you guys all sort of feel, starting with Brian, that you can hear his voice at times?
Yeah. I mean, even if I don't, there's always that thing in my head when I'm in certain situations of, I'll ask myself, like, how would Luke handle this? Because he was an inspiration for me of just who he was and the choices he would make and how he would handle situations. And he's still very much a voice of conscience for me. Yeah, every once in a while though, I'll still hear him. He's always around. He's always around in my life for sure.
How about you, Madelaine?
Yeah, I also often ask myself, what would Luke do in situations? More often than not. It's interesting. Right when he passed, they were starting to promote Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I was really struggling with losing him. And they put up a giant billboard of his face right up front of my place, and it felt like he was watching over me. I often hear him saying, "Hi, honey," and kissing me on the forehead like he always did. I feel like he's always with me. I feel very lucky.
How about you, Rory, on that?
I really used to lean on Luke talking about my kids a lot. He was like the best father I probably have ever seen as far as dealing with kids. If it was something related to kids, you had his attention. In fact, my son was really into The Walking Dead TV show, and there was like a convention, and Luke was friendly with one of the actors on the show that was on 90210. I think you had him on your show before, but Luke had called him and got him to like meet my son, and then he actually texted Madelaine and to meet my son and be nice to him. And that was yeah, you were it was in Chicago. Some of
Did I meet your son?
You did meet my son. He has a picture. He was 11 at the time, and all his friends were jealous. So his friends cared much more that he got to meet you than anyone from The Walking Dead. But that was Luke, and he like when I went through a divorce, and that first year is really tough. And Luke asked me, he's like, "What are you doing for Christmas?" And I didn't have my kids that year, and he's like, "Why don't you come over to my house for Christmas?" So I went over there, and there was no one there. It was just Luke and Madison, his fiance, and there was like no food, and I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" You know? And I was like, "Where is everyone?" And I could tell like Madison was like packing, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, don't worry about it." He's like, "You like chili?" He's like, "You want me to heat up some chili for you?" And I was like very confused, and I was like, "Well, where's your family?" And then Madison told me, "Oh, well, we're going to Bora Bora the next morning for like 2 weeks on like a big trip." And I was like, "Well, Luke still hadn't packed yet." And she was kind of annoyed that he hadn't packed. So I was like, "Well, why would you invite me over for Christmas when you have to leave the very next morning?" And he said, I just remember that feeling, and I didn't want you to be alone. And that's how caring he was. Like he would call and check in on me, and I'd hear like hubbub in the background, and I'd be like, "Where are you?" And he'd be like, "Oh, they're just doing the lighting on Riverdale." Like literally he called me from the set just to check in. And he did that with so many people. And I think Dan can attest to that too. People he grew up with, people he encountered. He had like a little list that he would check in with people every month. So I struggle sometimes just wanting to call him and text him and ask him his advice on things, because I selfishly relied on his wisdom a lot. He was a really wise guy.
What about that, Dan? Were there people that he was checking in on?
Oh, I don't know how he had the time to keep up with as many people as he, after he passed, and reconnecting with some people. Rory and I hadn't probably talked for a while until he got sick, and texted him back and forth. But in the immediate afterwards, he talked to dozens of people on a regular. I don't know. I really don't know how I had the time. I do. I have Madelaine might find this interesting, but a classic Luke. My oldest daughter is 16 and got into Riverdale a couple of years ago, and of course, KJ Appa was the cutest boy in the world, and I thought, well, maybe Luke can get an autograph picture of him. Or actually, I called Luke and said, "Hey, can you give me the number of the media people that handle this kind of thing?" Figuring at least I'll get a real signature instead of some assistant signing them. And Luke said, no, I'll take care of it. Well, I know how busy he was, and this was, giving him a month out. So as we get closer to Christmas, and it was the last Christmas he was with us, he says, "No, I got a better idea. I'll have KJ record a message to KJ on my phone and send it to her." Well, it never got done, but I mean, that was Luke. Well, when's her birthday? We'll do it for her birthday. Okay.
I think Madelaine may be able to talk about this, but I think he checked in every week with KJ's parents, because he was from Australia, and he was like just letting him know like he was okay. I mean,
yeah, he's from New Zealand, and he would hate it if you said Australia. He was 18 when he started our show, and he was very like new to America, and it was very scary for his parents to let him go onto a show like this and move to a foreign country where he didn't know anyone. And Luke really took KJ under his wing and called his parents every week to make sure that they knew that he was okay and that he was being taken care of, and this is what happened. And he was just that guy. You know, he really did that. I'm amazed at how many people he calls, like still people that I meet who are like, yeah, Luke would check in on me every week. And I'm like, Luke would check in on me every week. When did he have time to sleep? When did he have time to do other projects and write these things? And he was a financial mentor to me as well. I mean, he was so frugal, right? And he would teach me so much about how to live and how to save your money and to be responsible. And he also was the biggest prankster on set. Like, he really brought every piece of life to our show, and losing him has been probably the hardest thing we've ever experienced.
Did anyone ever go to his place in Tennessee?
Yeah.
KJ did, yeah.
What was that like? Was it a big farm? Did he have horses there?
Yeah, it's a pretty decent sized farm. Typically, there were a few, if not 4 to a half dozen horses, which the whole, he wasn't a horse guy.
Of course not.
He loved his cows too. He talked about his cows all the time.
Yeah. He had the pigs out there and cows.
Yeah.
It kind of was a dream that he had, that, once he could do it, he was going to do it. And I think part of it was, it offered an opportunity for us to all be together more.
Yeah. In the Midwest, yeah.
Yeah, it's a 6.5 hour drive for us from Central Ohio. And we would get together probably, a lot of our conversations was planning on the next time we were all going to get together at the farm. And that was kind of his driving thing. How can I get to the farm for as long as possible?
Was it outside of Nashville? Where was it in Tennessee?
It's about an hour due west of Nashville.
Oh, okay. Closer to Memphis.
Real small town, and he could walk around there and not be bothered at all. If he would have done it at home, everyone would want to talk to him all the time, and he would want to talk to all of them all the time. And so the Tennessee place worked out.
That's great.
Well,
curious for Madelaine, is there you mentioned that he was always great with advice. Is there one piece of advice that really stands out to you?
Oh boy. I wouldn't even know if it was advice. It was more of like an energy he shifted in me. But my first Comic-Con, obviously I'd never done anything of any size like that before. It was very stressful. Our show hadn't aired yet. And yet people were screaming my name and knew who I was. And it's a very jarring feeling to experience for the first time. And I remember Luke squeezed my shoulders and talked to whoever was kind of coordinating the event and said, I want to be paired with her for her interview. And the entire interview, he would focus things towards me and pull me into the interview and almost kind of guided me through this first huge step in my career with the training wheels on. And he did that time and time again. I remember I had some weird drama on social media. Not that he was ever on social media, but I called him being like, I don't know what to do. I feel like the world hates me. This is so stressful. And he was like, just breathe. Where are you? We're going to dinner. And just dropped everything, went to dinner with me at Gotham Steakhouse down the street, and just spent the entire night talking to me about how none of that shit matters and telling me that it's just about who you are on the inside. I mean, he always brought it back to being kind and to just being humble and to being appreciative and grateful. And that's, I think, the advice that I walked away with, is that I will always carry that with me and a piece of him.
How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know if it was so much a piece of advice. Like he just so led by example that it shifts your way of looking at the world and appreciating the things that are around you. Like he really forced you to stop and breathe for a second and notice things that you would possibly think you needed to move too fast to see. And he was he was really aware of everything. He was really aware of the people around him. He was really aware of everyone's feelings, what might help them. It was amazing for me after he had passed, hearing all the stories of things that he had done for people and never spoken about. Always little things like always having balloons in his pocket. So when he was on a plane and a kid was crying, he would be able to blow up a balloon just to silence a child crying, because nobody wants to hear that for a full flight, but also just to help them feel better. He would travel and visit people that needed a little love and attention in hospitals. He would. I heard that of an elderly man that lived on his street who he bought a new wheelchair for. Like, he would do all these really cool things and never talk about them at all, because it wasn't about that. It wasn't about getting the attention for things. It was just about being a kind person and wanting the best for people. So yeah, walking away from that. I mean, I've known Luke forever. We got to do a commercial together before 90210, which I met him on. It was a Dr. Pepper commercial, and there were probably like 25 actors in the commercial, but Luke and I just really clicked and got along. And so then when I saw him on set, it was cool because he always made you feel like comfortable when he was around you. And so it was kind of a nice thing, because that was, that whole experience was, as Madelaine knows, it's a very strange alien sort of situation to be in. And so to have somebody in it with you for the ride, whether it's awesome and high or low or confusing or all of that, he was a cheerleader just for your life and the people around him. And it was cool. There's not a lot of people like him. I'm not surprised by hearing all the stories that I hear from everyone. I'm not surprised to hear how many people he positively affected, because he positively affected me for sure.
How about you, Rory? Anything on advice or thoughts that's something that?
Well, we used to talk sometimes. I felt like I was maybe more into his career than he was sometimes, because I would say like, "Hey, I saw you on Body of Proof," and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, how was it?" Like, he didn't watch. He just was more into like other things. But it was really cool when he was in the Tarantino movie, because he had he was really reinvigorated in a way. And we went out for dinner while he was working on the movie, and I asked him, like, well, what's it like working with Tarantino? And I guess I expected like an answer about like, he's this brilliant writer and all this stuff. But Luke was like, he's the kindest director I've ever worked with. Like, that's what Luke brought up about him, because he said he really made Luke feel his contribution meant something, and Luke told me that people will always remember how you made them feel. And like Brian said, like, we're all here because Luke, I think, made us all feel really good. And when someone passes, sometimes they're almost like eulogized as a saint, and you kind of forget about maybe their indiscretions. And, Luke was a real person, but he really didn't have any indiscretions. He really wasn't as good and this kind. So I really enjoy talking about him, because he had such an impact on my life. It's good for others to hear about how special of a person he was.
Yeah. Larry, you did a lot of writing for Luke Perry.
Yeah, I'm envious of, because I was brought up in Hollywood as don't talk to the actors if you're a writer. Don't go to the set, don't talk to the actors. Only bad things can happen. So I had a professional relationship with Luke for 74 episodes, 74 hours. So, we did, work closely in that. And, he was always very challenging, which was good. I mean, when you had a big storyline for him, he wanted to have some input into it. But but at the same time, it was all part of the team, so it was exciting. I mean, it was challenging, and I know the one thing, one story I haven't told yet, because we've been talking about Luke, for a while now, and it's been so enlightening. In the fifth season, he was coming out of, we had really brought him low. We had, he had ended up, crashing his Porsche and into rehab, and he's getting out, and I wanted to find a way to really nourish his soul again. And one of my friends from before I was a TV writer, my first success was as a published poet. And one of the friends I met in the poetry world was Charles Bukowski, who became a good friend of mine, and his wife too. And he had passed in '93, which was hard for me because he, like everyone for Luke, he was really an important person in my life. And I knew he had more books coming in, and I kind of was trying to help him a bit. So I talked to Luke, to see if he really knew who Bukowski was, and he had certainly heard of him, but he really didn't know the words that much. And so I started getting him some books, and I found out in doing that was that Bukowski's wife Linda was a big 90210 fan, and she really wanted to come to the set. And so I talked. I can't remember who was writing the episode, but it was an episode where Andrea was going to be meeting Luke after his rehab, and I wanted her to give him something. So I said, well, I said, let's give him a Bukowski book, and we and Luke read the poem. It's a great poem called Bluebird, which of all odd things and merging of worlds, Bukowski is on Beverly Hills 90210, which is an interesting thing in itself. But he reads the Bluebird poem, which if you read the whole poem, it's amazing, but it's about all the damage you do to yourself, all the whiskey or whatever, but inside you, there's a bluebird, and no one can see it, but it's there, and you can't put that thing out. It's just the kindness in somebody. And he really related to it, and did a beautiful scene with Andrea on it. And I kind of felt good because I was able to help Bukowski. And then also later in the season, we had him with another Bukowski book. I think it was Betting on the Muse. So we had Last Night of the Earth and Betting on the Muse, kind of gave some cross promotion to my friends, but also it updated Luke's, as Dylan's character, because one of the big things about Dylan was he was a Balzac and a Baudelaire and a Rimbaud fan, but now he was contemporary, a Bukowski fan, kind of gave him some more hip edge, and I think he appreciated that, and I was able to do something kind for my friends.
There's a bluebird in my heart, wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke. All the whores and bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there.
I'm curious, we'll kind of wrap this up. Do you guys remember the last time that you spoke with him? And I guess just what do you want everybody to know about him? We've kind of covered a lot of that, but what was it like the last time you spoke to him? Madelaine? Sorry.
It was always easy to talk to Luke, and I was going through a really hard time last time we spoke, and he had actually just sent me a script that he had found for us to do together. He wanted us to do a film that was a 2-person movie in one room. And he was like, he'd been telling me about it for months, and he had just sent me the script, and he was like, have you read it? Have you read it? I was like, I haven't gotten a chance yet. Like, I'm going through all these things. And of course he was so invigorated by the script he wanted us to do together, but he put everything aside and sat there and listened to every little problem I had, to the point where he almost missed his flight, and helped me through what I was going through. And I think the last message I have from him was like 2 days before it happened, and he was like, I love you so much, honey. Read the damn script. And I mean, to take away from this conversation, just every day I wake up with a sense of kindness and humility I don't think I would have had without Luke in my life. And like Brian can attest to, like when you kind of go onto a show like we have, obviously they're different, but the experience is similar. You can get wrapped up in all of that so easily. And I think without Luke, a lot of us would have. And he grounded us, and he taught me how to conduct myself in day-to-day life in a way that I never would have been able to without him.
How about you, Brian?
Yeah.
Last conversation and some of that.
We had lunch like a week and a half before he had passed. And I ended up, oddly enough, I was talking to him about some neurological stuff that I'd been coming out of and dealing with that he didn't know all the details of. And so it was a much more selfish meeting for me with him. but Luke just had that ability of literally just putting everything else going on in his life aside and just completely focusing on you for however long you spent with him, which was amazing. And when I remember when I had first heard that he had a stroke, I had gone through really obviously not physically similar things, but I had a lot of neurological things recently. And so I thought, okay, well, this is something then that, knowing Luke, like I can help him a bit with all of this. And then finding out that he had passed, at first I was hurt by it. I mean, I'm still hurt about it, but honestly, if Luke was compromised at all, I don't think Luke would have been happy being Luke. He liked having his senses and being 100% of who he could be. I think because he knew how much he could give to other people, and how important he could be in everyone's lives. And so I think for me, he went out on top. He was an amazing person, though. I miss him dearly. I miss him dearly every day. But I know he's still here. I know he's still looking down, and I know he's still speaking to all of us, in little ways daily. And he's forever left an imprint on my life for sure. And I'm so thankful that I have that experience.
Rory, what about you? Last time that you got to chat with him?
I wish I had a more poignant, final text exchange, but we went out for breakfast and he had gotten sick afterwards. And so all our texts are about how he has the runs. This is my final.
Way to bring it home, Rory.
Nicely done. But he was just still kidding, and that's unfortunate. That's the truth. But one nice thing that Dan knows a little bit about is Luke introduced me to my girlfriend because he was trying to get me with a girl that he had dated back from Ohio who had just moved from Charlotte, and we just could never connect. And he would hit me up. He'd be like, "Have you texted Michelle or have you called her?" And it just never aligned. But we actually met at his memorial and have been together ever since. So one of the nice things is we get to talk about Luke all the time, and she knew him really well. And so that's been really special for me, that he's kind of in this new relationship of mine. And Dan knows a little bit about that. He knows me well.
How about for you, Dan? Last time that you spoke to him, and we'll wrap this up.
The last time that we spoke, there's nothing interesting about it other than just two old farts BSing with each other. I do have something I can build a little bit about of who Luke was and how it was in that period. But I had a brother pass away in the previous December, and his name Jeffrey had cerebral palsy, and my mother had to have him put in an institution when we were probably about the same time. Well, no, before I even met Luke, but so he needed 24-hour care, and he couldn't talk, and the fact that he lived to be in his 50s was probably 20 years more than they had anticipated. But when I called Luke to tell him that Jeffrey had passed, Luke said the first thing out of his mouth was, "The world's going to miss his laugh." And it kind of struck me because, to my knowledge, Luke had never met my brother. My brother lived in an hour and a half away, and here he had had my mother take him up so that he could meet Jeffrey, and then swore her to secrecy. He never wanted me to know it for some reason. And he kept the secret for 30 some years probably. But that's just the guy that he was. He wanted to know who my brother was.
That's really beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I think we really touched. I think I'm a fan of Luke. I've never met Luke, but I wanted to get everybody together because of being a fan. And I think even as a fan, I still hear his voice in scenes or just the character that you guys wrote for him and whatnot. So whether it be Riverdale or 90210, you could hear him and you could feel his presence when he was on screen. He was always so emotionally connected to the material, whatever project he was working on. So I thank you guys all for this time and for this chat about Luke. And today we remember him. So
Pete, thank you for getting us all together to allow us to do this too.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
And happy birthday to Luke, everyone.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Luke.
Yeah, happy birthday, Luke. Thank you, Pete.
You got it, man.
Thank
all right,
you.
guys.
Luke and I hit it off right from the get-go. I remember the first day I was on the set, and we were sitting there getting to know each other, sitting at the picnic table there for lunch. We were on vacation, and we just, I don't know, it was just right away, and I really liked him so much. I attended the memorial. It was wonderful. It was great to hear some of his old friends that he grew up with talk, and it fit in to the man he became as the guy I knew on the day I met him on 90210, and he was just an extraordinary guy, and damn it, way too young, and he had a lot more things to do, both acting wise and society wise. He was a class act. I said at the time, damn, I didn't realize I'm starting to, as cool as Dylan McKay was, Luke Perry was even cooler. There was a goodness about him. He just had a thing about him that was incredibly special, and not just as an actor, as a human being. And wow, the more I talk about it, the more I realize how deep that is. I remember a few scenes. I do remember one of our favorites toward the end was this scene where we sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" together, and we just laughed our behinds off. Listen, we would crack each other up singing "Take me out to the ball game." He was such, oh man, I didn't realize. God, he was incredible. He was just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And now that I'm flashing back to the bottom line is I came to respect him so much, and I came to really consider him a friend. And even though, we didn't see each other, I think we ran into each other once after that period of time, I never stopped thinking of Luke as a friend of mine. And hopefully, and I do probably think that he did the same thing, but it just, there's a really deep, wonderful spot inside me that contains Luke Perry.
It's not me they're coming out to see, it's this character that I play. Yeah, a year ago I was shoveling asphalt, and a year from now I could be doing it again.
Luke is a super supportive, loving, stand-up guy.
What a genuine, classy young man.
One of the gentlest souls.
He was a very singular human being. I just adored him.
He was a wonderful man.
He had that quality that certain people have where when you feel like you're talking to him, he was 100% focused on you.
He did not have a bad bone in his body. He was just the kindest, most gracious, humble, funny. He was absolutely best. I absolutely adored him.
We got to see each other one last time. It was the same Luke, the same amazing, loving, kind, funny, crazy Luke.
Luke was a writer's dream. He pushed you to do better, and then he delivered on screen. It was a wonderful collaboration.
Luke just wanted to go. He wanted to go. He wanted to act. He wanted to tell this story. He was an artist, and he went for it in that show. It was beautiful. He was beautiful.
He loved the work. He loved being an actor, and he loved finding the best he could in a scene.
And he committed to things, and he went for it, and he wasn't afraid to just go for it.
He always was down to earth. He really was a serious actor.
He was just so thoughtful. I mean, everything he did, he really worked on. He thought about. There was nothing casual in his work ethic.
Infectious energy, he was just this incredible, warm, generous guy.
I went into the makeup trailer and Luke was there. And usually he and I would share some banter, we'd talk, and I could see he was already in the moment. He was already preparing for what was coming up. And I was like, wow, it was really, really amazing. And so I think he inspired everybody around him.
Luke was in the moment with every moment he played. He was living and breathing this, wanting it to be something that we'd be talking about 30 years later, and he made it so.
He was a really, really good actor, but being an actor, I don't think was the be-all and end-all of his life. He was a good man.
I asked him something like, well, so, what are you going to do with all this money you're making? And he said, I'm going to buy my dad a truck. Oh my God, this kid, he's so grounded.
And it was just that selfless quality that he had, that he wanted to just celebrate everybody else's joy.
While I was waiting to do my screen test with Tori that day, I was given one of the dressing rooms. As I was going in there, Luke sort of pulled me aside and said, hey, I know this is it's pretty stressful, but you're gonna kill it. It gives me shivers thinking about it, that he would just take the time to do that.
Luke Perry was very, very friendly with me, and we got on very well while I was working. He was a good support.
Luke, knowing his background, to be who he was, and to be as humble and kind and generous was astounding. You say his name and I tear up. He was just an incredible human being.
He fought so hard to look like the guy who loved horses all the time. He wanted everybody to know he was the real guy, but he didn't need to do that because he just was the real guy.
Such a lovely, charming, wonderful human being, so this series, you just miss him.
Amazing. He was amazing.
I know he is deeply missed by so many.
He's missed. He was a really special guy. People that got a chance to know him, they're lucky.
He wore his heart on his sleeve, and he was a warm, kind, loving guy. Had it all.
He was a miracle of a person.
When my time here is up, I don't want to look back and see that I didn't do anything. And by that I mean I didn't have any effect on anything else. I see a lot of people that let their life happen to them, and I want to happen to my life. I don't want my life to happen to me.